Welcome to Pagan Coffee Talk. If you enjoy our content, please consider donating and following our socials.
All right, coffee refilled. Okay, today's topic. Why does everyone think, or not everyone, but a lot of people, I guess, why does everyone think that paganism or witchcraft, Wicca, is the antithesis, yeah, I love that word, antithesis, opposite of Christianity? It's such a good question, and this has been going on for a long time.
It is. I mean, because even when we look at Satanism, it doesn't always seem to be.
Yep, it is though.
But it is.
Mm-hmm. So well, let's start by laying out the basics, right?
All right.
So the opposite of Christianity, right?
Right.
We actually, even if you're not a Christian, you probably know more about this than you realize from pop culture and definitely from horror movies, right? The opposite of Christianity, okay? Instead of worshiping the upper force or the heavenly, celestial, right?
Right.
Deity and all the things that go with it.
Yeah.
It is the underworld and it is the hellscape and obviously the devil who resides there.
Right.
Instead of having a Messiah, a Christ, a Son of God, we have an Antichrist, the son of the devil.
Right.
Instead of having apostles, this is what's wild. The devil technically does have apostles.
Yeah.
There is a host of demons that act as his 12.
And just to remind everybody, those demons used to be angels that got thrown out with him.
Right, they're all fallen angels. Exactly. The Ten Commandments become this sort of bastardized, do whatever the heck you want, with no regard for anyone or anything. Interestingly, though, the Ten Commandments are where it gets a little bit muddy, because technically, if we want to be technical, the Ten Commandments are not Christian, they're Judaic.
Right.
Yeah. So they kind of sort of don't count, but they're in there somewhere too. What else? There's all of the dogma, all of the rules of Christianity are basically, invert them.
Right.
That's it. It's an inversion of everything, and that is what is considered heresy, along with a bunch of other stuff. But but that's the origin of the belief or the idea of a heretic.
Right.
So, okay.
But we're pagans.
Right.
We're not.
Pagans don't typically. And I'm going to say typically because I'm not going to speak for all, but
Right.
I mean...
I'm sure there's a few out there.
Yeah, right? Pagans don't typically believe in the devil.
No.
Because most pagans also don't necessarily believe in the Christian version of God.
No.
And they don't necessarily believe in the Messiah either.
Well, we don't necessarily believe in the whole heaven and hell thing either.
Mm-hmm. We have a variation or our own conception of it, but it's very different than that of Christianity. The thing I always find funny is okay, so the Jesus question, right? Because so many pagans are often asked by family members, right? Do you still believe in Jesus? And, my answer for many years was always the same. Yes, I believe he was a very nice man.
Yes.
Do I believe he was the Son of God in the way that Christianity portrays him? Not really.
I mean, to get down to it, we take more of like the Jewish view of Christ.
Or
where
even,
he was just a teacher, he was a person, and
or even the Muslim, right? He was a prophet of sorts, maybe. Yeah, but I don't see him as the way he is, personified in Christianity. But I do think he was a very nice man. and I think he had some lovely ideas and teachings.
I mean, I'm not going to go around and bash the religion just because.
No, not at all.
You know, I don't see where in the world that becomes
No.
helpful at all.
Do I believe that, really, I mean, I think the ultimate question, I think when a lot of Christians ask, do you believe in Jesus, really comes down to, do you believe that Jesus died for our sins? No, I don't. Because I don't believe in sin.
I believe in guilt.
I believe in emotion. So yes, I mean, okay, good thing that you brought that up. Well, okay, I believe in guilt, sure. I believe that sin is whatever in your heart you know to be wrong.
Yes.
If it makes you feel guilty and it plagues you, you did a bad thing.
Yeah.
And you should say you're sorry and fix it. Yeah. Like, that's it.
That's
like,
it.
I know how infantile that sounds, hence the voice, but yeah.
But it's exactly right.
Right. Other Christian ideals. I don't believe that we are born sinners.
No.
I don't believe that we are inherently... I don't believe that without the Christian concept of rites, like baptism,
Right.
that I will be condemned to hell.
Right. Or you will not be allowed into heaven because you haven't
Right.
done these things.
Yeah.
I don't...
None of these things resonate with me. So most pagans believe in a concept of animism that goes way, I mean, we're going back to cave people, of the idea that everything has a spirit.
Right.
We interact with those spirits, right? Animate objects, inanimate objects, everything effectively has a piece of an energetic soul of some sort. And as do we.
Right.
And our job is to function within the natural world. We strive for balance. We look to understand ourselves and understand our innermost beliefs, desires, doctrines for each individual.
Right.
And we don't judge. We don't pass judgment just because another person's belief that something is right for them. If we think it's wrong for us, that's all there is to it. Cool. It's right for you. It's wrong for me. Proceed. Yeah.
Life goes on.
That's it.
Like most pagans I know, we don't believe there's anything wrong with the world.
No. I don't think the world needs fixing. I do think that man definitely has detrimental effects on the planet, but she will course correct. I trust in her to take care of it. And if that means wiping out a whole bunch of us, whoopsie. I mean, I'm all right with that. You know, if I get swallowed up by the ocean, I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah. I'm perfectly okay with that. If nature wants to reclaim me, okay.
All right. It's not a force you can fight with much.
No. Might as well just accept it. Gosh, what else?
Here, where do they get the idea?
Where did it come from?
Where did this come from when we just sat here and describe how these are not?
Yeah. All right, let's talk history.
Is this more pop culture crap?
No. So unfortunately, a lot of it comes from the fact that, all right, we gotta go back a ways here. So a lot of it stems from, I believe, the 1500s. Up until about that time, the Christian church, the church at large, had not defined the devil.
No.
We didn't know what he looked like. We didn't know what his form was.
Right.
And in the 1500s, or about that time, is when the church basically decreed what the devil was. And effectively, they took an image very similar to Baphomet.
Yeah.
The goat man, horned god-esque, pagan deity, and said, that's him.
Right.
This also led to a situation where during the witch trials, part of what and I mean, we're not going to get too far down this rabbit hole, but a big part of persecuting witches and being able to define heresy was communion with the devil.
Yes.
That witches were, in whatever way, talking to him, working with him, working for him, communing with him, etc., etc.
Right.
And that really started this notion, because the problem was during the Burning Times and the Inquisition and the persecution of witches as a whole. The thing that people need to remember is it had nothing to do with spirituality, and it really had nothing to do with religion. It was about land and wealth.
Yes.
So if you had a healer in town, an herbalist, let's say, and I mean, we're using modern day terms to describe, I mean, they didn't call themselves herbalists back then. But if you had somebody who was something of an herbalist and they had a farm where they grew their herbs, and it was a decent amount of land, and it was well cultivated, and it was well taken care of, and people in the village went to this person when they needed a particular salve or a healing ointment or whatever it was, their land was valuable.
Yes.
Okay? Well, there's nothing in the Bible that makes you condemnable because you made someone a salve.
Right.
Or a tincture or an ointment. So they had to come up with something that linked these individuals to something that was the antithesis of Christianity, which equaled heresy. And there it was. So that's the situation in a nutshell. And it prevailed.
All the way up to today.
Yes.
Where we still have people looking at us going, well, y'all worship devils. What?
I have stood in Marie Laveau's, well, it's called Marie Laveau's. It's a shop in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. There's actually 2 locations. It is Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo. It is registered as a legal church. They have multiple properties and locations. And it is a voodoo cultural center. Don't get me wrong. Yes, they make money. They sell a lot of stuff. They have to be able to afford rent on Bourbon Street. But it is also an educational institution. And I have been in this shop where there is a giant statue of Baphomet and a woman clearly looking at the poor kid working the counter that day and going, "Why do y'all worship the devil?" And you could literally see him not only roll his eyes, but his voice went completely monotone, and he went, "Ma'am, that is not the devil. That is the voodoo hoodoo god Baphomet. Baphomet," and he goes into this whole speech that he's given so many times, right? You can see like the life draining out of him that he's doing it yet again.
Poor guy.
Right. And this woman, who was inebriated, by the way, because Bourbon Street in New Orleans, literally just kept harping and was going, "Well, I don't care what you say, that's the devil." But that brings about that question. According to who and how? How do you know, or how does let's say regular Christian, right, out in the world, how have they come to look at that picture of Baphomet and go, "That's the devil"?
Well, see, when I asked this type of question when I was younger in church, where did all these other religions come from if this is what in the world y'all claim? Uh-huh. Well, and basically what they said was the devil apparently got a DeLorean, traveled back in time, and recreated all these false religions before the real religion.
Nuh-uh.
That was the answer I was basically given. Somehow, Satan traveled back in time and set all these up before.
Okay, I need my own DeLorean so I can go back in time and beat the crap out of the youth pastor that fed you that line of horse shit.
And again, that was horse. Again, even I knew this as a kid. I'm sitting there looking at him going, "What?
Wow. Wowie wow. You just shocked the shit out of me with that one. Okay.
This is what I was told as a kid. This is how all these other. This is how Hindu came about, and how everything over in Asia.
Ishka-bibble. No.
Okay, he didn't say. Of course.
Yeah,
my
no,
youth
I
pastor
gotcha.
did not say anything about the DeLorean.
Yeah.
but
No, I getcha. But the idea that the devil could time travel doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So, but I mean, yes. Look, I think all modern pagans know and understand that the Christian Church did a lot of
shady things.
Well, that and they manipulated text and they manipulated doctrine and scriptures to, again, in a way, incorporate a lot of non-Christian faiths in an effort to try to convert them.
Yeah.
And this still goes on. This is still a thing. This is missionaries. This is what they do. So, unfortunately, Christianity has just had this very far reach, and there you go. I mean, and so they're perpetuating some of this. I don't really know, though. I find it interesting that, again, the picture of what they call the devil is so well known, is so widely understood, especially when there are no pamphlets anymore. Like,
no.
And there's no church that I have been to where they're like, and here's your pamphlet on the devil, and this is what he looks like, and this is everything you need to know to avoid. No. So I don't know. I don't know if it's pop culture. I don't know if it is zealot sects of Christianity that maybe are distributing something like that. When we think about some of the revivalist Christian traditions that get kind of intense, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, the idea that we are the opposite of is absurd to most pagans.
Yes.
And yeah, it's still very much a belief. It's still, I would venture to say, in most instances, it's still the number one question that we are asked. Yeah. But we are seeing a shift. We're seeing a shift in that I now think it's the over 30s and the under 30s. Over the age of 30, people's first, we're still getting a lot of...
Are y'all devil worshippers?
Yeah, are you devil worshippers?
Right.
Under the age of 30, we're seeing more of the Harry Potter influence. y'all know how I feel about that. But yeah, we're seeing more of this slightly better understanding of the belief system.
Right.
But a lot of it still isn't rooted in anything real.
Right. It's just kind of still bits and pieces here.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly the under 30s, a lot of them have gone ahead and said, well, I do love Harry Potter, and like, what's it based on? And then they go down the rabbit hole of Wicca and kind of form their own thoughts. But, but that's also where we get a lot of spiritualists now.
Yes.
In the younger generation, that just don't really see a need for organized religion at all in any form. And they're just happy to effectively be modern hippies. Yeah.
I ain't got a problem with
them.
No,
I don't either.
Do what you want.
I just wish that those modern hippies would realize that there is personal growth and spiritual growth to be gained by having something of a structure and by having a more formal education and also community. But I mean, again, to each their own. It's not up to me. I mean, if that's what you're happy with, then hey, okay. But yeah, but there is, I think the younger generation for the most part does understand that we are not devil worshippers. It is going to get better. However, there are always going to be people who are intensely raised in the Christian church. And
we'll always say it. We'll always think it. There's nothing we can do to change that.
No. You are always going to have people who go, that is witchcraft and that is of the devil.
Right.
And that's the exact phrasing.
And that's the end of the
That's
subject.
the end of the subject. And this includes psychics. This includes divination of any kind. This includes any use of crystals, herbs,
Look,
natural elements.
I've seen some of them get up there. No yoga, no tai chi, not even as the exercise form, because that will cause worship.
Well, I mean, and a lot of that, like, look, I mean, you know, Christians have a lot of hang-ups about sex. When the Kama Sutra became holy, people's heads were about to pop off. What do you mean the Hindus have a book that basically teaches you how to have sex in every conceivable manner, and to them, this is almost a religious text.
Yes. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than just
There's
that.
a lot more to it, but that's the surface perception
of it.
Right. So, again, devil, that can't possibly be, you know. And then, you know, what's interesting, too, is when you look at, like, depictions, when you look at Hindu... I mean, look, all right, Kali is terrifying. Terrifying. When you look at pictures of Hindu gods, they are not... There's nothing remotely...
Wait a minute. No. You sit here and say this, but yet have you seen the AI generations where they put the descriptions of angels in the pictures that came back?
Oh, yeah.
Angels are even bizarre.
Yeah, more terrifying, yeah. But that's kind of my point, though. I mean, you look, like, I find Hindu believers to be fascinating. I don't know. The American culture doesn't always have the best view of India, and, you know, I don't know why, but I find them to be very strong people. And my feeling is, if you can worship gods like Kali and Vishnu and you got some balls. Because these gods are not the warm and fuzzy. I mean, even we have, you know, for as much as we have Hecate, we also have Diana. We have these versions. We have Aphrodite.
Yeah.
We have these versions of the goddess that are very soft and squishy and feminine and you know. Yeah, but I look at some of the Hindu gods and I'm like, oh boy, you are super scary. So I can only imagine, if I'm a pagan saying that, I can only imagine a Christian looking at Kali and going, holy crap. That's a demon, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it doesn't help. This is the other thing that I think does not help at all. The concept that wherever it comes from in the Bible, the belief that God made man in his image, but then throughout history and culture, each version of man has decided it must mean in the form that they are today. Yeah. Hence why we have such a whitewashed view of Jesus.
Yeah.
And, you know, God must be this strapping gentleman with a big white beard and, you know, all, like... It's just...
I have a hard time wrapping my head around it.
Same. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that when we look at the cradle of humanity and we look at things like Mesopotamia and we look at, you know, the Fertile Crescent and historically the places where man likely originated, we were brown.
Well, we were a lot of colors.
Yeah, but we were, you know, we were much darker. We were not the Caucasian picture
of what everybody thinks.
And that is another component of the devil. The anglicized Christian belief system also vilified black people.
True.
And that's like, right? So the very color of their
wasn't
skin.
it? Because I remember something to the effect of people were some Christians were trying to claim black people were the people that were descended from Cain.
Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of...
And I'm like, what?
There are all kinds of crazy theories. And again, when you look at African tribes and you go back to the slave trade, there it was. Like, it was, again, let's take these gods, these deities, and convert and move the people away from them. It was another version of control, and it was unification. But yes, I mean, it was another way to hold down black people from achieving. And
well, I think it was more of a justification to do this practice, to go down here and get these specific people to make them
Probably
specifically trade instead of your neighbors down the street.
Right. Probably both. I mean, either
Yeah.
way, it wasn't good.
No.
It wasn't good. It's why I always get a personal giggle when I see a black Santa Claus, in the stores at Christmas. And me personally, yes, I think it's great. It gives me a giggle, and I always see the other, the white people shop who like get very, black Santa Claus, and I'm like, shut up. Like, you're part of the problem right there. Like,
just move on with it. Keep on going.
Why can't there be a black Santa, for God's sake? It's important to give these cultures that have been so held down a sense of belonging and a sense of their own representation. But yeah, I mean, there were so many ways that we look. In the hoodoo and voodoo religions, you have the Baron, and you have the different hoodoo represent same thing. They have become, variations upon the devil.
Right.
Yeah, it's all garbage. And hoodoo, ironically, hoodoo has more in common with Christianity than anything else, just because of how much of it was lost to antiquity.
Well, I mean, how much Catholicism is wrapped up in voodoo?
It's the other way around, but yeah. Because what happened is, again, the enslaved people had to fill in the gaps of their culture. So
right.
I think one of the ways that they did it was to use biblical concepts to help fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people that will tell you that voodoo is just an offshoot of Christianity. Yeah. Which, it's kind of wild.
You ready for some more coffee?
I am. Let's do that.
Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another episode. Pagan Coffee Talk is brought to you by Life Temple and Seminary. Please visit us at lifetempleseminary.org for more information, as well as links to our social media: Facebook, Discord, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit.
We travel down this trodden path, a maze of stone and mire. Just hold my hand as we pass by a sea of blazing pyres. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning breaks. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning breaks.